Just a general reminder that Linux has gotten really, really good in the last 2 years. I play all my games no problem with Steam's Proton compatibility layer. I know Linux isn't for everyone, but if you're going far enough to change entire pieces of the Windows OS because you don't like it, it might be time to give Linux a legitimate try. I wish I could. You see this nonsense right here? This keeps me awake at night. I'm really worried about the future of Windows. You know, I'd like to switch over to Linux, but I can't. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. I'm going to talk about the 3 biggest reasons why I cannot switch over to Linux, because I think a lot of people are in this same boat as me. They are stuck with Windows because of a couple different programs, and there's really nothing that's exactly the same on Linux. So switching over to Linux is going to be a lot of pain. And eventually we'll have to come to a point where we're going to have to be like, all right, is it too much pain to stay on Windows? Or is it going to be too much pain to make some of the stuff that I need to work on Linux work? Before you jump in the comments and say there's alternatives to everything, let me tell you right now, there are not alternatives to everything. And I'm going to cover the weird use cases and scenarios that are keeping me on Windows so that we can understand why a lot of people who really want to switch over to Linux can't do so. But first, let's talk about some things that you can use Linux for, because I actually do use Linux a lot in my house. I probably have more installations of Linux than I do of Windows, if you count all the VMs and everything that I have running. And this ZimaBoard is extremely cool. Now, it comes with Casa OS pre-installed, but that's something that you can use, or you can install anything you like. And if you're curious about all the different things you could do with that, all the different programs you can install, you can check out my ZimaBoard review. I'll put a link in the description. But what makes this special is the fact that it's x86, not ARM-based. And they call it the world's first single-board hackable computer. I'm not going to verify that, but I know it is a single-board hackable computer, and it also has PCI Express. So it's completely silent. It's got PCI Express, allowing you to basically expand to anything. Plug a graphics card into that if you wanted to. You could plug a SAS card. You want an extra NVMe? Well, plug something in right there and you can expand your storage. But you also have SATA ports, so you could turn this into a file server. One of the things I think the ZimaBoard is really good for is learning, because you can tinker with this. And I think tinkering is a really important thing. So a board like this can allow you to put it on the table, try different operating systems, try different distros of Linux, try different, try Portainer, try Casa OS, try whatever. Try plugging things in, try hacking. And then if you already have a really nice home server but you need a new router, well, the ZimaBoard is x86 and it's compatible with OpenSense, which is basically like a better version of pfSense. So you could run like the ultimate router with this tiny single board computer. So now that you're curious about the ZimaBoard, I've got all the links down in the description. If you don't have one yet, just head on down there and you can grab one. Also, I made a full-on video on this, so I'll put that link in the description. If you're curious about Casa OS and what you can do with that, check that out, but you'll also get all the other details and specs of the ZimaBoard. So all that's going to be in the description. Now let's get back to talking about why I can't use Linux on my main system. All right, before I talk about Linux, let's talk about Windows for just a minute, because I'm stuck on Windows. And really, the big problem with being stuck on Windows is that Windows operates under the model of capitalism. It doesn't operate under any sort of open source, like software for the people, all that kind of stuff. It's not that. They have to make a product and they have to sell that product. And though, the kernel can be updated, they've just updated the entire operating system many times over the years. We're still using a lot of stuff from before Windows 95. Like the GUI, it's Windows NT, which was around before Windows 95 was around. It didn't become a desktop operating system until Windows 2000, but the DNA from that is behind the scenes. A lot of the control panels and stuff, you'll look at them and be like, oh, this is the same thing from 2000 and XP, and it's all there behind the scenes. But, they slap a new coat of paint on it, update a few things, update some stuff in the kernel, change whatever else, just bits and pieces of software, and then give you a new version of the operating system. If you want a system like Linux, you could install your own security patches. There could be community patches, and you could still be running Windows 7 or Windows 10 or Windows 8, whatever your favorite Windows variety is, Windows XP. It's all very similar under the hood. You could even update the kernel and just keep the top GUI in place, and it all should technically work, but we can't have that because profit is more important than, giving you a product that's natural and that's what you would normally use. Profit kind of goes against what's natural for us in many different ways. It's not always innovative. It comes up with innovative ways to steal your data and screw you over. Now we're at the mess that is Windows 11, which is kind of feeling like the Windows 8 thing all over again, except I think it's worse this time, and I just made a video about that, so check that in the description, talking about all the reasons why I think it's worse. As much as I scream and as much as I yell and as much as I complain, I'm stuck on Windows, and there's a few key reasons.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of
In
America.
the last few years, Linux has come farther than I think it has in the last decade. And a lot of that's thanks to Valve because of their, their Proton compatibility layer, their special version of Wine that just grabs what you need. If you haven't used it yet, if you haven't used SteamOS, or you don't know how any of this works, several years ago, Steam tried to push for this whole SteamOS operating system with Linux and everything. And they wanted to get the developers involved, and they're like, hey, support Linux. All you got to do is just, make your games, make sure that they work with Vulkan or OpenGL or whatever, make sure they support Linux. But the developers were just like, no, we're just going to support Windows. And that was especially true with like a lot of the AAA developers and the developers who make games that are like competitive online because they have the anti-cheat. And that's almost always just a Windows application that runs to make sure you're not cheating. So Valve saw that nobody seemed to care about supporting, Linux. And what they did was take a look at everything and said, let's take all the API calls that are coming to Windows and we'll translate them over into stuff that Linux can use. So that's where they created the Proton compatibility layer. And whenever you're installing a game that's a Windows game and you're trying to install it on SteamOS or Linux or whatever, Steam on Linux, whatever, they just use their compatibility layer to grab and install whatever prerequisites that they need for that specific game. And it just kind of works. And this works really well a lot of the times, but it doesn't cover everything. So gaming is one big area for me. And like I said, they've done a lot. But there's one key thing that keeps me on Windows, and that is modding. I mod a lot of the games that I play. A lot of the games nowadays work with mods, but not all the mods. Like for instance, Morrowind, you can probably get a lot of the texture mods and whatnot to run. Maybe 80% of the mods will run. But the 20% of the mods that don't run, a lot of times that's going to be like the scripting mods, the DLLs and stuff. Stuff that adds really cool functionality to the game. And that's stuff that I don't want to live without. Yeah, I'm still going to need Windows when it comes to modding certain games. And other games are just difficult to mod regardless. The other thing is a lot of the fixes for like widescreen patches for older games, stuff that makes older games have modern UIs, a lot of that is developed specifically for Windows. You can get some of this stuff to work, but the problem with it is it requires an enormous amount of fussing, whereas on Windows, it requires a minimal amount of fussing. I don't like to just mess around with my OS. I like to play the game. When it really comes down to it, I'm going to be pragmatic and continue to use an operating system that I don't love anymore. I'm going to continue to use Windows. I don't care as much about the operating system as I do about the applications I have installed. And I want to get to those applications as quickly as possible, and I can only do that in Windows because a lot of this stuff is just not made for Linux. Gaming is a big deal to me, and it's not quite there on Linux. And I think a lot of it works actually better on Linux. I like the alt tabbing works better on, a lot of different copies of Linux, depending on what you're running. But yeah. The next thing I want to talk about is creativity. Now, I think that the nerds, the programmers, the people who run servers and everything, they're already taken care of on Linux for the most part. But the creative audience is not taken care of. To an extent, yes. There's a lot of really good open source stuff out there. So if you want to do video editing, you're taken care of. If you want to do music creation, you're somewhat taken care of. And I said somewhat because I create music and I can't do it fully on Linux. If you do photography, you're kinda. And if you use industry standard stuff like the Adobe suite, all that nonsense, if you do that for work and they require you to use the Adobe suite, well, you're out of luck. Now, Adobe, well, are they going to support Linux? Who knows? Maybe they'll release some flat packs or something. I don't know. The number one reason is a piece of software called FL Studio, and that's what I use to make all the music. Now, this music stuff is something I've considered, quitting the channel to go full-time on that. And that's because it's done well enough that I could probably live a meager life in a country that's not America and live off of the music. Live an actually pretty decent life if I was somewhere like Thailand, but I'd rather be in Japan or Taiwan, which is a little more expensive, but it suits my flavor, suits my taste a little better. And I think I could live just off the music. And that's like not working on games or anything like that. That's just making albums. So I take it very seriously. I consider myself to be a professional in that regard at this point. And a lot of that has to do with just, how well the albums have done. And thank you so much for listening to the albums. It's like kind of shocking that despite not releasing an album in a while, every month they still get a lot of sales. And I don't know who's talking about it because I don't talk about it that much. Link in the description for people who haven't heard my music. But FL Studio will work in Wine. It does work. But the problem is that I have lots of premium plugins. So let's take a look at some of that kind of stuff. So like this is a super audio card. I love this. It's freaking awesome. And this just allows you, this is a bunch of samples that allows you to create all kinds of different music from all kinds of different systems. We're talking like everything from the Master System to the Game Boy to DOS, MIDI, AdLib. and Super Nintendo, regular Nintendo. It lets you do all kinds of stuff. But this is a premium thing. You know, I paid $140 for it. I think I got it on sale. I usually wait till Black Friday because these things are like 50% off. So I think I got it on sale, but it doesn't really work in Linux because it works in Native Instruments. Native Instruments does not work in Linux. So that's a huge, huge amount of stuff. And there's no native support for this. You might be able to get it hacked and working under Wine or something, but then I also use a lot of these sounds. See this? Yes, I buy these things. This is my job. It's like people are like, "Oh, you pay all this money. There's plenty of free VSTs." Yeah, that's great. There's plenty of free tools for you to build a house too. But I'm sure that maybe it'll be a cool house. Maybe it'll be like nice little hobby house, little tree house or something. But the paid tools are probably going to be sometimes better. Not always better, depending on what you're doing. Because I do use a lot of free stuff. Whenever I'm making a lot of the chiptunes and the Nintendo style stuff, I do use a lot of free plugins, and especially for the latest stuff that has like the DOS flavor, the DOS MIDI flavor, a lot of that stuff is free. But I don't want to have a few things that I use in Linux, but then I can't use the majority of the stuff I purchased. I got the harpsichord and the taiko drums from here, from Fluffy Audio, and this also, again, is Native Instruments. This is the big one, Vienna Symphonic Library. I have a lot of these libraries, and they are not cheap. For instance, you just want like some violins or whatever? Well, let's take a look and see how expensive just a violin is. These packages, you want the full library, 740 euros. I always get them on Black Friday. There you go, list price for the full library of all these strings. I get them on Black Friday because they're like half price, or 30-40% off. But still, I have a lot of these packages, thousands of dollars worth. And here's a little sample to let you hear what they sound like. Put some of the stuff on the albums, but I wanted to use it for like game development or whatever. When we were working on the RPG, I got some of those to try to start making some music. And I figure if I was to do this full time, go and meet people, shake hands at different conventions, it would be nice to have that in case they wanted fully symphonic stuff. And I do understand scoring and all that. So that's something that I would have to give up if I moved over to Linux, because this requires some terrible DRM. It's awful. I mean, it's really, really bad. It would make anybody cringe, including, I'm sure all the Linux people are cringing when they heard the phrase DRM. And I don't like it either. But here's the deal. My creativity is more important than my righteousness. And if my righteousness is getting in the way and blocking me from being creative, I'm going to be pragmatic and say, like, I can stop being so damn righteous because this is the best thing. I want to use the best thing because it will allow me to be creative. And once I've got my full-on interface open and all that stuff, I'm no longer in the operating system, in my opinion. I'm in the DAW. I'm making my music, but as soon as I close it, I'm back in the operating system, and I've got DRM going in the background. But while I'm being creative, I don't care about what's going on in the background. I'm making music. Now, when it comes to other creative software, well, there's DaVinci Resolve. If you're someone who likes Premiere, you can totally get by with DaVinci Resolve. I would argue that it's even better. I am not very good at it. I'm kind of slow because I'm so used to Premiere. It would be a pretty big learning curve, but that's something I'm willing to actually do. I'm willing to go through the learning curve because I think DaVinci Resolve will probably end up being a better deal. The videos might be a little bit rough at first, but also, you know, if I have my will in all this, I'll move away from videos soon and start just doing music and games. That's my goal. You know, if you're someone who's just getting started, I'm jealous because you can just start off and learn DaVinci Resolve and not have to rely on Adobe Premiere. But there's also Kdenlive, you know, if you want to check that out. But I think this is probably the more professional piece of software. And if you're someone who just needs something to draw, I think Krita's great. You know, it's very similar to Photoshop. It's pretty good, and you can draw these. What's up with these cheebs? And then when it comes to game engines, well, Godot works just fine. Unity works fine. A lot of the game engines work fine in Linux, and there's, you know, you got support for Unreal Engine 5. So you can get a lot of these things working. There may be some stuff you got to do if you want to mess around with DirectX or whatever. I haven't tried building packages in Linux or whatever, but you know, I have messed around with Godot. Got some stuff going on there. It works. It works all right. This is the other software that I use all the time. And this one, Well, you got to build it if you want to use it in Linux. This is what I use to create all my pixel art. And let's just put it this way. Support with Wayland is kind of spotty. This is something that just works much better in Windows and Mac OS. Here's some stuff I've been messing around with. This has also got animations and everything in Godot. There we go. A little click adventure I'm working on. It's all secret right now, but you can see the computer repair store here. Just taking anybody back? Anybody feeling anything while they're looking at this? Can you name all the boxes over here? This took a while. I did a lot of these. Like this one, I tried to do digital scans of the boxes and then eventually just realized I'm going to have to go in here and do this pixel by pixel. So this one took forever because it's pixel by pixel. A lot of people look at pixel art and they're like, don't you just press generate? No, you don't. You do not just press generate. Working on some animations for a little Godot game with the gun. Yeah, that's what you want to see, right? You want to see the gun shot? Where is it? And you know what? I'm going to give you the special. See if anybody knows what this is an homage to. Are you ready? What is this an homage to? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, so yeah, I use this program quite a lot, but it just does not work very well in Linux. One of the things I don't think you got covered in Linux is Lightroom. You don't have a really nice photography suite for organizing and editing your photos. There is some stuff. Lightroom is far better than the other stuff. When it comes to creativity, you kind of still have to stay on Mac or Windows, and that's really sad. And a lot of that is the fault of the developers. Again, people are always like, oh, the developers are waiting for more people to go over to Linux, and a lot of people are just suffering, being like, please, we can't go over to Linux until you make your stuff available. So I don't think people understand, I don't think developers understand how much of a demand there is for certain things. Even some of the premium paid software would do just fine on Linux, because some people, if they need it, like I bought FL Studio, I bought the plugins, I would move over and install them all on Linux in a heartbeat if they worked. Y'all do not understand how important this piece of software is. This is always open on my computer. There's nothing that comes close on Linux. I've tried all of the music programs, all of them. And unfortunately, this one is not open source. This is Foobar 2000 if you're just looking at the screen being like, what in the hell is that? And why is it so much better? Well, it's got so many different things that it can do. For instance, we got our file operations here. If I want to just come over and move these things, I can do move to. And I've got all these things I have set up to move it all. Or I could just put Control M right there, and then I can move all my stuff. If I want to convert things from one thing to another, I can convert them to all these things. I've got Opus and FLAC and whatever, AAC. Just all these different things that I've set up for conversion. And then it doesn't mess with my music folders. I do all that myself. It allows me to organize things to a ridiculous degree. And, there we go. Yes, this beautiful music right here. And you set up your stuff on there's nothing better. This is it. This is the music program. I set up this theme myself. If you're curious about how I did this, you can look in the description. I'll put up a link that says, hey, here's all my Foobar videos, because I've made videos on how I set all this stuff up. Now, what are the things that have come the closest on Linux? Back in the day, Dead Beef was pretty close. So was Clementine, but close, but no cigarettes. But they were pretty close. Dead Beef could almost scratch that itch if it wasn't so damn ugly. I guess I could try a few things. Strawberry, just tried this recently. It's okay. If you're not as demanding as me, this will be fine for you. And a lot of people are not as persnickety and not as demanding. They'll be fine. This didn't do it either. It's getting there, but and then you can come over here if you're looking for flat packs and just see what else there is. But yeah, I've tried like 20 different things. I wasted a lot of time. There's Clementine I just mentioned. But yeah, there's nothing. That's nothing. It's not the same. It would be a sacrifice. And the point of moving over there is to make my life better, not to sacrifice things. So I don't know what I'm going to do. Other than try to just run that in Wine. Now you can run that in Wine. There's versions of Wine that work okay with it. The problem I have with that is even after getting it installed, a lot of these things are using JavaScript, and that's just broken. It doesn't work very well. Even if you get it working with the Flatpak, it's a Flatpak that installs everything in Wine so you can get Foobar working. But it'll only work with like a basic installation of Foobar. So my version of Foobar here is not going to work. Like, nope, not happening. The other thing about this is that getting it set up with network storage. I've got all my music on the NAS. That was not fun. I gave up after a while. Trying to get all that to work in Wine. If I could just get a native version. Foobar creator, I think your name's Peter. Please, could you do us all a favor and either make it open source? I know you don't want to. Some people could maybe get it on Linux or get it on Linux. I know Linux is not your flavor of programming. I'm looking on the forum, but there is an Android version, so I don't know. But yeah, Linux version would be amazing. The reason that it's not open source, from what I've gathered by looking, was that looks like the developer of Foobar kind of said, I don't think anybody else is as smart as me when it comes to working on this piece of software, so I don't trust them to be able to do a good job, so I'm just going to do it myself. So yeah, you could make it open source and then see what happens. If someone forks it and makes a garbage version, then I don't see how that would really harm the main version, would it? I don't know. A lot of open source projects out there have a lot of forks that just are there, but no one pays attention to because they don't work very well, or they don't get maintained, or they're really far downstream, but whatever. And the last thing, I always use multiple monitors on my computers. And with the latest versions of Linux, maybe it's gotten a little bit better, but the last time I tried, I had a lot of trouble, especially with Wayland, like trying to get multiple different monitors, different screens of different resolutions to work. So I kind of just left that alone. It worked sometimes, but sometimes I would just turn it on and one of my monitors wouldn't come on, or it would change which one was the main. It wasn't very good. So I think Wayland's still half-baked. It's been half-baked for 15 years. What the hell? Go back to Xorg? I don't know. But I installed Debian 12 and that came with Wayland, and it works, kinda. OBS is, I guess I haven't tried it in a month, but OBS didn't work very well. That's the last thing, is I would rather spend most of my time doing creative things or playing games. And I feel like an operating system should not get in my way. Linux, you spend a lot of time tinkering and a lot of time configuring your operating system. I spend a lot of time tinkering and configuring Windows as well, but after it gets to a point, I leave it alone and then I just do my stuff, and it's there in the background. It just facilitates what I'm doing with my computer, and that's what I would want to do with Linux as well, but I end up spending way too much time fussing and tinkering. So for instance, I've got Debian 12 right now installed on the laptop, and I installed it because it's stable, and that's what I want. I want something that's stable, that I don't care about the newest packages that much. There are a few things that I care about when it comes to the newest packages, so I run DistroBox for Firefox, and I also installed OBS. I was using Arch for that, but it didn't work very well, so maybe I need to try OpenSUSE or Fedora or something, I don't know. But DistroBox allows you to install other versions of Linux inside whatever version of Linux you have installed, so that you can install packages for that version of Linux and just have them almost natively open up.
Open up.
And it's you'll never even notice that it's using dependencies from a different distro. And you need some hard drive space for this, but I like it better than running a Flatpak or running an app image or whatever. I like DistroBox a lot, even though it requires a little more hard drive space. But I think that could be an awesome solution once it becomes a little more mature, and a lot of it's still done in the command line, and it won't be too much fussing, I don't think, in the next year or two. But I think Linux it's not the desktop operating system of the next generation yet. I think it's ready for most people. Creatives and people who have some special use cases like I do are still hostage to Windows. Why? Yeah. My options right now are to stay on Windows and just hope that some packages come out to hack all the nonsense that's going to be thrown at us when it comes to the latest build of Windows 24 H2. That's a mess. Watch my last video on that. It's a mess, and I'm not happy about it. And that's one of the reasons why I've been really stressed, thinking I really want to move over to Linux, but I can't. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to sit here one day and be I'm going to do it and format everything and just spend a gazillion hours trying to make things work and fussing and being it's not going to work. Right now the VMs are really powerful, so I could run a VM inside Linux with Windows with all the stuff I want installed. That's an option. Doing, straight up pass-through, hardware pass-through with a lot of things, you can do that. Doesn't sound like a fun option, or I'd rather just have everything work in one operating system. My last option is to run Linux on one machine and then have a totally separate physical machine that maybe I don't even connect to the internet. I install Windows 10 on, install all my audio programs, and install some games on. That's another option, but I don't have a lot of room for that, and I'm not sure if I want to. Having a Windows rig that I turn around, it's got my keyboard, my piano keyboard, not my Spider Nest keyboard. This is Spider Nest keyboard. This is piano keyboard. Just in case you're wondering, that would be another option that I could turn around and use that. So that's where I am. And now you understand why me and people like me cannot jump over to Linux. There are still some things that are keeping us hostage on other operating systems, even though a lot of us would prefer to be on Linux. I much prefer the interface and a lot of the functionality, even though I'm not sure if I like mounts better than just having the hard drives and partitions and all that. I kind of like that from the way my brain works. Mounts definitely better for servers and everything though, but that's another talk for another day. Let me know what you think of this. I'm still going to use Linux for all my servers and laptop and I don't know, whatever else, little mini PCs that I use for watching videos and such. But for my daily driver, primary desktop, can't do it. All right, you watched to the end, so let's tell you what the deals are. Half price on the keyboard. Right there it is. And this is a very silent membrane keyboard, but it's nice and poppy. I went over to Asia and traveled around, and these are from Korea. I almost said Hong Kong. These are from Korea, and I don't use any software on any of this stuff. You just hold down the function button and press tab to change the colors of the lights on there. And then also, we have this on sale for half price. This doesn't go on sale for half price all that often. Got a few boxes of these left. $20 is a steal for a flawless gaming sensor, and again, no software needed. If you want to change the colors, well, first you can change the DPI by pressing this button, and then you can change the colors by holding down this button and this button for 3 seconds. All that's outlined right here in the video. So, yep, half price on these. Head over to epicpants.com and grab them, and I'll see you in the comments.